Jenna North, and I'm based in San Francisco, California. So I was just offered a teaching position at my very first art school in upstate New York. It's called Pratt and Williams Proctor Institute, and it's a 2-year art school that focuses on an intensive foundations program. I'll be teaching freshmen color theory, 2D design, and drawing. So as soon as I get back to the States, I'll be going to San Francisco, loading everything up in a moving van and driving all the way to New York. It's a big country, so it's going to be quite the journey. But I'm excited to be here with you guys today. I'm here in the Maldives because I'm envisioning this project to happen on a rooftop here. We have yet to decide which rooftop this is going to be, but we're in the planning stages. And I plan to stay here as long as possible in order to go ahead and get one secured. The project is that, and I don't know if do they know anything about it?
I did send the link.
Oh, you did? Okay. So did you guys all read my spiel? Am I repeating myself here?
Check the website, but then
Okay, yeah. So basically, it's to create the illusion of the water rising and washing over one of the coastal buildings in Malé. And so trying to land a building. On the rooftop, I want to have a community garden that would be made up of edible plants so that it could be this meeting ground and a space where people could learn how to do their own gardens and also participate by collaborating together, designing the garden and using the garden for their own purposes. And then the actual rooftop could be a great platform for doing other types of educational programming, whether it be in the arts or environment, other kinds of community groups, I don't know. But ideally it would be a public building that would have very good access to the regular public. And so that's why maybe we're having a little bit of trouble with landing a government building, because there's some issues with that. And so looking to schools, universities, and actually wanting to get advice from anyone that has ideas. So, ideally this space would be on the coast so that from a satellite image or a commuter plane, we could actually work with the full landscape, and if possible, we could even work with it on the ground level, the sides of the buildings. Initially, I thought the building had to be a flat roof, but the more people I talked to, and the more architects that seem interested in the project, I'm beginning to think, well, it's okay if it's a pitched roof. We can terrace, we can do all sorts of things, right? And you guys are all creative individuals, and I'm really fortunate to have met Sahil here, who is a very good architect and has designed several of the resorts in the Maldives and worked on many government buildings and other smaller projects. And so he's very enthusiastic to work on the project. So thank you for coming here. If you guys have architecture-related questions, I think you're happy to talk about that kind of thing. Because also, something that we've been talking about is using recycled materials. So what you're going to find out is that I'm a painter. And initially, the idea was to use paint so it would just be a mural, But thinking about it, I never really limit myself to paint, though I am a painter. I often use kind of things like road base or glass beads or concrete or other kinds of dimensional things. And sometimes the paintings literally are dimensional. So I realized that I was limiting myself, and then I was also being selfish, saying that this needed to be a painting, because maybe paint isn't that available in the Maldives, and I would have to, ship in this specialized paint. Well, I've also been looking into nanotechnology-based paint that could actually cool the building by 75%. And then a friend of mine just keyed me into this project that's happening in New York City right now, where they're painting several city blocks, all with this reflective white paint. Have any of you heard about this? It's really interesting, and I don't even think it's necessarily a specialized paint. It's just highly reflective white paint, and it's cooling the building significantly and cooling the area. So I think that's something that the Maldives could look to for if they're, working on revamping an area or something. It's kind of interesting. But so anyhow, paint versus raw materials that would otherwise be going in what you don't even have a landfills, garbage island, right? Which I have a plan to go to garbage island and check these things out, and or dumping in the ocean, which I'm sure you're all aware of, that this is common practice with the resorts, right? And how much waste from the resorts is actually going to Garbage Island, or is Garbage Island only Malé, the close by islands here? Does anyone know that?
They're mostly from the close by islands, but some other items they bring from distance to what they are living. And on the way they went dropping sometimes. Mostly from close by islands.
So, well, I'll find out more about Garbage Island when I go there. I'll wear a mask too. But, so materials that I've been thinking about and discussing with Sahil are glass, and actually materials that would be from buildings that are being torn down for reasons such as erosion and how the sea level rise is already affecting the islands. And so conceptually, I feel like that works better with the project than importing in this paint that would then also, with the UV rays, need to be repainted, and it would just be kind of putting this my problem on someone else, because I can't be here all the time. So I don't want to do that. I want it to be more self-sufficient, sustainable, and lasting over time. So that's really something to think about too. But so I'm thinking right now, these are my thoughts, but I actually really want to open this up to you guys to see what you think about materials. But what I'm thinking right now is broken glass with maybe some roofing tile, blue tile, and gypsum board, the wall board with plaster in it for the whites. I could get a variety of blue. I could bring in some dry pigment, some different blues. Ideally, I wouldn't have to import anything, and that everything in this project would be from waste materials here on the islands. So, knowing the colors of the ocean here, I think the challenge is coming up with, or thinking about what types of materials are being wasted in that color scheme. Now, when I go to Garbage Island, I'm going to have this special color filter eyes, when I'm looking around for those colors, right? But if you guys can think of anything, feel free to throw it out there, because we're trying to actually not only land the building before I leave in about a week or so, but decide on the materials. So when I'm back in New York, these things can start being collected and maybe put, instead of thrown away, put in a special place so that they're here when I come back in December to start the project. And so the plan is that I'll be here when my semester ends, I think about December 20th. And then I plan to come in and jump right in. And so I'm doing this presentation with you guys today, one, because it's great to share the project. Two, because I'm really interested to get some feedback and hear what you guys think about it. And maybe even possibly make some mock-ups in the next week we can have while I'm still here. You know, that if anyone's really inspired, I would love it to see what, and I could actually even come back and we could play with materials together and put them together too. I don't know how flexible you are or how often the class meets.
It's twice a week, so there's a Monday and a Saturday class.
Okay.
So if anyone's interested, we can do this anytime or we can do it as a group.
Okay.
So,
Okay. And we can talk about the logistics later. I'm still working out my travel details, but it's looking like I'll stay until the 8th of August right now, so it's fine, a little more time. So with that said, does anyone have any questions about the project before I go into my art spiel?
Sounds interesting.
Okay. Conceptually, do you guys think it's a good idea? Do you think it's silly? Do you think, I mean, because one thing is that people aren't really going to know what's on this roof that are just walking around the streets, right? So this is one of the challenges. What can we do to this building on the outside of the building? Would it be that some maybe paint is used? Maybe we're using this reflective paint or nanotechnology paint or something that it continues what's happening on the top, down the sides. Now, most of the buildings in Malé are so tight together, so maybe from the front and the back. Until we really have the building, it's so hard, you know, but we can come up with different ideas so that when we do land the building, we'll have some options to work with. So, okay, so the idea, you think it's good, you think it's bad, you think, honestly, just like if any of you are even having any like negative thoughts, like why would you want to do this, like voice it, I would love to know.
I think it might be a little challenging. I mean, it might be challenging, but I think if it is going through positive, if people see some positive effects, they'll buy it.
Okay. So you think in the beginning, maybe people will not take to it very well, or they'll question it and be like, why are they doing this? But then,
I personally think that we might face some situations like that.
okay. I'll tell you that I was inspired by your president having the cabinet meeting underwater. And I know that many people in the country might look at it like, oh, stunt to get the world to look at it. And it was, you know, but it was a good stunt. And, you know, it sold me. It's like I started researching different island nations that were being affected by global warming, sea level rise. And the Maldives stuck because of what was going on politically in the country and what Nasheed did, you know, to show the world what's happening here. And so it worked for me. And then I started looking at pictures of the Maldives, and it's just an amazing place, and I became obsessed with it. And you'll see how this works into my artwork. But, well, so does anyone else want to share anything about just the concept or the idea in general? Any concerns? Or should I just do my presentation?
If I may add some,
What's that?
if I may add something, during material research, trash research, and after obtaining a trash, after we did a background study of the research, the chosen material, we actually, some materials, it actually surprised us of the number of, or the quantity of how much it is actually wasted. It was actually surprising when compared to something else.
So let me ask you this. So you guys are doing this project, you're making a furniture piece out of waste material. And so did you all research different types of materials, and what was the criteria, or what did you, how did that work?
No, actually, we didn't inform that we have to make a furniture. first we have to bring a piece of waste material.
Okay.
So when we chose the material from there onwards, we were asked to make a furniture from that. So some people chose sparry paper, this bags, small bags, cigarette butts like this. So whatever they like, they chose in it. Then we were asked to do a furniture. I mean, after studying, researching that material, was to do a furniture based on that.
In the trash came something related to his life. Maybe someone eating supari, he is throwing its cover, no? So that is something related to him. So he chose that cover. And some people clothes and.
So wait, are you saying that some of the trash, the actual materials then affected what you would choose to make with
Yeah,
it?
something. There must be a relation with that person.
A personal relation.
With the
Or
trash.
conceptual relationship, yes.
If someone is
What the
using
object
paper,
is.
no, most of the time, so he is using paper.
Okay, so what's another example of a conceptual relationship of materials and function?
I choose the material CD,
What was the
CD
material?
compact disc.
Oh, CDs,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the CD itself, the relation I had with it was because a long time in my past that computer classes and all those things I missed a lot, and due to some problems, and I was not allowed into the computer classes and such that, and I finally got hold of one, and so I treasured it for a long time. And after a big gap during this research, when I actually saw the CD thrown away, those memories recalled me. So like
So
that
it was
also.
emotional for you.
Yeah, something like that.
Then what was your object?
I made a memory box out of it to store mementos.
Okay. Ooh, so it was very sentimental. Anyone else want to share what they came up with for materials? Okay. Huh?
Instead of what?
I took cigarette butts after smoking. The reason why I took it because I'm a smoker. That is one of the big reasons, and my family don't like that at all, especially my wife. And it was very difficult. With one side there is this cigarette, other side there is wife. I'm standing in the middle. So I have to find another way. So live with both. And my wife found out that there is a use with this cigarette butt. She in the house she has small garden place. She plant trees. So she used this cigarette butt for water. At the daytime, she wants to keep the soil moisture. So
Oh,
if
yeah,
the
lots of cold
cigarette butt
moisture, right?
actually absorbs a lot of water, it helps to keep the plant bed warmer. So from that day actually I got that she also has a use of this. That really inspired me. And I made with the cigarette but I made a coffee machine to hold the table.
Coffee and cigarettes?
Yeah, those for me those things are like necessary things now. Something like my design is actually a cage, a person inside a cage. A smoker is actually he needs to smoke. He gets this urge and feeling to smoke. Like that, the whole thing I designed.
So, did this help you quit smoking?
No, it actually encouraged me.
Darn it. Come on, Art. Anyone else want to share any of their projects?
I choose fabric. I choose fabric because actually I was in police last semester, no? Then I got some difficulties with studies, so I try to convince them how difficult we have to do practical works, no? In architecture, so I need some relief to studies, so they didn't give any excuse. So now I'm out of police, so I want to make a furniture to keep this uniform. So I made a laundry box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you use a sewing machine or what did you?
No,
or you just
by
needle?
hand, yeah, with needles. These are the things I have used. So I made a furniture, and now this is the furniture. So now I'm trying to put it in some.
Like an installation somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
So this is something freedom, no? Came out of police and free
Is-
repositories. So for that I made this maquette, freedom.
Okay.
This is free in the soul, no? Some inspiration.
Is this glue or silicone?
Glue,
Glue.
yeah, fabric glue.
Fabric glue. Well, but this isn't a waste material, right?
No, so this doesn't have to be.
It doesn't
written.
have, it's not part of the project.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to make some maquette with the inspiration or with the space.
It's really nice. It's beautiful. Thanks for showing. I'm curious, this is a little bit off the subject, but looking at your proposal for an installation here, I'm curious if there is anywhere on campus that you guys are able to do any kind of art shows or installation or presentations of anything that you make. Is there anything like that here?
Not really, but last semester they used this space between here. It is possible to show some of their work.
It is possible like they can, if they want to, like they can display their final presentation or anything. They can arrange it.
Great, at least there's somewhere. And is it open to the public, or at least the people at the college?
Last time we did have like that, yeah, we had an exhibition where people can.
One of the conversations I've been having with a lot of the artists here is a sort of a lack of showing space, exhibition space. There's the National Art Gallery, but they can't do everything. And so it seems, and I know there isn't even an art program here, but if there's any, even, the fact that you're here teaching some art, it's always great if there can be some place to display it so that other people can see what's happening.
Yeah, I think hopefully there will be more artisan centers and places like that here, because this is really the first batch that's actually coming out of this program.
Oh,
So
wow.
hopefully they'll start something.
I'd love to come back and teach some art here too at some point. That'd be great. Well, should I go ahead and show you my work?
Yeah, sure.
So this is some early work. These are dimensional paintings or wall sculptures, wall. I didn't know what to call them. I went to school, I started at the same school, Pratt Munson Proctor in Utica, New York, where I had a great foundations program. I took metal sculpture, wood sculpture, and ceramics. I took jewelry, and I did painting and printmaking and drawing. And by the second year in art school, you kind of have to choose more of a focus. And my focus became more on painting. That seemed to be the best way for me to express what I wanted to express. And but I never bought into this thing that like painting had to just be this, flat surface on canvas or something. So so these I just called them dazzlers, and they're about this big, and using medium density fiberboard and a router to do the edges, and I'm casting actually waste materials. So the forms are made out of the plastic from things like cakes and cupcakes and like things that you find at the grocery store, plastic things, and then I'm filling them with hydrostone plaster, and then using like car enamel for these, so the paint is really slick and industrial looking. And then these are just some source materials for the types of things I was looking at: Islamic design, mandalas, symmetrical, ornamental, decorative things from different cultures. And again, yes, I'm a painter, but I always felt this sort of frustration with fine arts being the high art, and decoration, interior design, furniture making, any kind of design being lower art than fine art. So I've always, this has been, and it's a common thread in my work, but so I tend to love to look at that stuff. Like when I go to a new city, I'm usually more interested in looking at the architecture and you know, tile work and the decorative ornamentation. I'm oftentimes more interested in that than the art that's in the museums. Oh, and this is quite a large piece. It's also dimensional, slightly dimensional, but it's on wood, and there's lots of layers of paint and jewels and things. So just more influence here. Tibetan monks making mandalas out of sand. This is called Quaternity. So, still being really influenced by art, design, decoration from different cultures, finding myself sort of surfing the different ages of design. There's a designer who's also an architect named Owen Jones, who wrote the book, The Grammar of Ornament, and it was basically these guidelines for designers, and I tried to follow the rules. There was all these propositions, and like what colors could be next to each other, or what colors, you know, could not be next to each other, and things like that. So I tried some different exercises doing that. So this is also cut wood. I think it's about 4 feet. MDF again. And what this is coming more from sort of 1950s atomic age, which is a phrase typically used for the period of history following the detonation of the first nuclear bomb. And then here's some of the architecture of that time. And it's not like I was around at this time, but I've always been really fond of this period of architecture post-World War II. This is the architect, John Lautner from California. And this, have you guys ever heard of the term googie? It's kind of obscure even for America, so it's just a cool word though, googie, G-O-O-G-I-E, and basically it's sort of space age futurism in architecture, and the way it translated into pop culture was through hot dog stands in the shape of a hot dog, or like a giant jug building, or like this Route 66 popular, you know, roadside attraction type architecture where it's just kind of weird and, you know, like cantilever roofs and bowling alleys and even gas stations that just got a little strange and going in different directions as if they were in outer space. And there's a cartoon called The Jetsons. that was around in the 50s and 60s, and it was this family lived in outer space, and their architecture was really similar to Goofy. And so I made this piece, and this is multiple panels, all, let's see, 11 inches by 17 inches. And this isn't the configuration that I showed. I showed these works and a couple others that I'll show you. Some of the dazzlers at Pennsylvania State University. I was able to get a solo show there at the university, so that was pretty exciting. And so I planned out these series for the show, and the way I had these displayed was, if you can see the kind of configuration of the forms, how there's like one like this, and then one straight up, and then one 90 degrees, and then it shifts again. So they would take up a whole huge wall in these different configurations, which is just repeated over and over again, and the shape is the same shape of the form. Here's a detail. And so I made all of these forms out of wood. And I was trying to find some better pictures of kind of dino 60s culture for this next piece called Cafeteria, which the colors are off here. They're actually really bright orange and red. It just kind of looks darker on here. This piece is called Feynman Goes Googie, which Richard Feynman is a physicist that worked on the atom bomb. And these are some of his diagrams, so the kind of grammatical or linear drawing, diagrammatical stuff is all taken straight from the scientist diagrams. And then there's the little boomerangs and little atomic symbols that are kind of like, you know, poppy, designy, but, you know, at the same time, you know, kind of ominous and significant at that time.
So how do you determine how many pieces to put in?
You know, I just sort of got stuck on this number 15. And so I did 3 series with 15 paintings. I'm not sure where 15 came from. I think I was doing a lot of pre-designing on the computer, and it just seemed to be a good number for configuring. And then I discovered cymatics, which is it's the process or naturally occurring patterns when you have a sound wave, frequency wave from nature. And so I actually, what I was doing earlier.
What happens to particles of sand and other various particles when a sound resonates across a plate and resonates those particles in tune with the sound? Because when we think, we're not just sending out a wave which resonates the energy, we're sending out on a frequency outside of the range of human hearing, we're sending out a sound. Everything is sound. When we think, a sound goes out, it resonates the energy around us to that sound. And sound takes random particles and turns it into astonishing form. And that's how this universe was created. In the beginning was the Word was sound. So what you're looking at here is merely particles formed into patterns by sound. They've got all over the place to start with, just in random positions on the plate. As soon as the sound appears, they form into these patterns because everything is sound, and it is sound that turns matter and energy into form. Patterns on wings of birds and insects are all the manifestation of the sound vibration. Every organ in our body resonates to a certain frequency. When our thoughts and emotions and stress and the vibrations that causes deharmonize the vibration what you give out is what you create.
I think I was just having a physical reaction to that high pitched sound, actually. Have any of you ever seen that before?
No.
I've seen
You have? Okay.
the stationary is that was the points of the stationary research.
So the first scientist that discovered this was named Ernst Chladni, and he's a German scientist, and what he discovered is that if you take a violin bow and rub it against a metal plate with some kind of filings or sand or something, that it would form these different patterns with the different tones from the violin bow. So this is, then Hans Jenny, a Swiss scientist, did further experiments in the 1950s where he used a lot of different materials and frequency wave generators and things like this and documented this stuff. And there's a beautiful book actually called Cymatics that I own. It's an amazing book. Hopefully maybe someone could request it for the library because it's really amazing, his different experiments. So seeing some of my previous work, maybe you can see why I would be so excited by finding out that this is a phenomenon. Because what was so interesting about looking at all these different designs from different cultures is that there were so many similarities. Native American, Egyptian, Islamic, Buddhist, like all this stuff. Victorian, but it's all just coming from the universe, it's something that's like, it's innate, it's within us, it's within, the ground we walk on, and the space we live in, and it's not just these people that are designing these things. So it's like this full participation in the universe. So I was really excited, and so it kind of turned into this whole series of work in this process. So these, though they look like simple designs, these are patterns formed by sound waves. And these are some of the typical Chladni patterns. And they're called Chladni patterns from the German scientist, Ernst Chladni. And but I painted them to make them look as if they were some kind of wallpaper or something in the 50s. Then I wanted to take a more scientific approach to the process, and I was able to get myself into a physics lab in Kansas State University. I was living on a farm in Kansas in the middle of nowhere, and literally, it was very rural. And I was teaching high school, and I was able to access this science lab so that I could bring my students in. Well, I had soon discovered this cymatics, and so I was able to use their equipment, the frequency wave generator and the plates and sand and things, and I tried using different shaped forms and things. And it was really fun, so I got to actually do the process on my own. And then, it just, to me, it always goes back to painting. I get excited about the phenomena, but then it's like, how can I translate this into a painting? So I then had to learn enough to get around in a program called Mathematica. And so these next paintings that you'll see are all algorithm-based on specific frequency waves found in nature. And this is the very first one in the series. Here's some others. And so these are oil enamel on panel. And again, I'm using medium density fiberboard and also a fiberboard front. And there's no nails. The top is glued to the side frame, and then I round around it. So it's this just one form, curved, really slick looking object. And the paint quality itself is also very slick and industrial looking. And by the end of the series, I got really good at this. And And people would see these paintings and think that maybe they're photographs or something like printed on metal or something. And I worked on that series for a couple of years and used only gray tones, 11 tones. And basically, the process, I was using an algorithm and then doing these plots and then converting it to contour line and creating a paint by number system for myself and mixing the tones. And it was a process, but it wasn't. It became just that, a process, and I started to feel like a sign painter in a way. There was some creativity involved with choosing the images because I would generate hundreds and sometimes thousands of these images, and then I would go through and just like scan them really quickly and sort of pick the ones that jump out at me, sort of like you would pick a tarot card or something. And so in a way it was mine, and I was the one putting the numbers in, but it's still, I was feeling this detachment to the series, and especially I think with the color scheme, with all these grays and how kind of modern and cold they were, I just kind of hit this point where I had to end it. And so this was the last one, and there were some colors. There's a few I did a couple that were all in red tones that were pretty hot looking. But this is a good little transitional piece to this, where it just kind of all gets sort of chaotic. But I think in retrospect, a common theme here is that I'm still very much influenced by sound waves, frequency waves, and vibration. Using a lot of different types of materials here. I'm mixing different types of pigments with silicone and spreading it thin and letting it dry and peeling it up and cutting it out and using it for collage. And there's areas where it's very thick paint and areas where it's very thin. And I also do some printmaking process in there. I'm making my own sort of stamps and things. And so there's lots of layers and lots of I started using fishnet to create this look of mathematical modeling. And not the actual fishnet, but painting through it. So I was spray painting through it. And then these lines, those, see those striped lines coming down? They're this next process. So I think I was feeling a little loosey-goosey with the organic waveforms and all that, and I needed to structure myself a little more and tighten myself up again. So I started making these stripe paintings where I was molding the paint, and I used a ribbed vinyl where I mixed paint with enough sort of liquid that I could pour the paint and pour the paint directly into sections. And I would build it up and mix all the different tones and build it up until there were several layers of paint, and then I could peel it off and use, and then I would basically have this fabric made of paint that I could use for anything. I could wrap objects in it. I did a show in Miami, Florida at a big art fair called Art Basel, and where I made a bedspread and curtains out of paint, and then had my gray tone paintings all in the hotel room. It was one of these art fairs in a hotel room. So I basically transformed the hotel room into this crazy vibrational space. I wish I had pictures of it, but I don't. So when I got back from the art fair, I was in graduate school at this past And the previous work you saw last, from the end of the, I came into graduate school doing the Gray Tone series, and then shifted about my second semester into grad school, where I went at San Francisco Art Institute. And I was offered a full fellowship to go, so I had to take it. It was a great opportunity and a very good school. But it's tough to be in grad school because you have all these different voices telling you to do different things. And I had one of my main painting teachers telling me that I needed to stick with the gray tones, that I just needed to make them bigger, more intricate, or slight shifts, and maybe the type of paint I'm using. And she wasn't at all supportive of me just breaking out and doing what I wanted to do. And then and you'll find that in school, it's like you want to do one thing, and someone else wants you to do another, and someone else might want you to do something totally different. And ultimately, it's good when you're in school to try a lot of different things. That's all I can say about that. Okay, don't be too stubborn. You know what you want to do, but it's good to get out of your comfort zone. So, looking back, I feel like, and I'm skipping a lot of different things that I did in grad school. I did a lot, I made a lot of junk, really. And it's really uncomfortable to make work that's not that good when you're coming from a series that was so strong. So, but it's all part of the process of being an artist, and you have to have some failures to have some success. So this was my next series that seemed successful. And I had a big show in San Francisco with these, and they went to the art fair, and they're these very slick paintings that they're perfect because I'm molding the paint. So they're perfect lines. The tones are mixed perfectly, and they got so perfect that it was like any little. So here's a smaller one. So see the little bump in it. Like if there was just one little thing off, it would just drive me nuts, and it could sometimes just ruin the whole piece for me. And the process was so laborious, and I kind of hit this point where I just got so frustrated with the whole thing. I started actually melting some of the pieces with a heat gun and getting these kind of morphed pimples and stuff. I wish I had one of those pictures to show you. Then I became more interested in the pools of paint, and this piece is more similar to a couple of the ones that you saw before, and kind of going back into more of an organic feel. And then I started really looking at different types of weather systems, and hearing a lot about what was going on with global warming. I listened to the news, NPR, National Public Radio, a lot when I'm in my studio, or I listen to a lot of music, ambient music, fusion, and sometimes weird, spacey, atmospheric kind of thing. So all this stuff affects what I make, what I'm listening to, what's around me, and I also started thinking back to my experience on the farm, where there was very extreme weather, and summers would be so hot, over 100 degrees for several months, and then one day out of the blue, the sky would turn purple and yellow, and baseball-sized hail would fall from the sky and break windows and things, and then a tornado would come through. And I would spend, weeks and weeks planting and tilling the land, and then in one night, leaf hoppers would come through and eat everything. It was just extreme in every way possible, it seemed to me. And we were suffering also at that time a really bad drought, where the ground was just cracking like an earthquake, giant cracks in the land. And so it just all felt very extreme, and it was also when, there was a lot of debates on the news about global warming. Is it real? you know, a lot of scientific debates, political debates. Is it real? Is it real? What's going on here? And so I started making these weather paintings. And it looks a little more outer space to me, but it's atmospheric. They're abstract. This one kind of made me think more of like the Big Bang or something, like the beginning of life. The series, these 5 paintings had a specific sort of linear narrative to them. And so they all have different meanings for me. So it's more of a water navigational device. And then sometimes I can just do a simple organic painting like this, where I went to Yosemite Falls in Northern California, which is a national park and an extremely beautiful place, waterfalls and giant mountains. And so I came back and made this painting, and it just took me like a day and a half, where most of everything else I've showed you, I labor over it. The bigger layered paintings, and I tend to never know when to stop. I just kind of keep being adamant, and maybe too much, like this painting. There's so much going on. This is one that I'm using some road base, some masonry paint that probably is made of chunks of cement, and other things like tree resins and waxes and caustic. Again, a lot of dimensionality on the left, and some of the cast paint that I'm cutting and using for collage. And this one's about an earthquake, so there's seismograph with heartbeat monitor. And this is a picture from my graduate thesis show. So this is, I had these 2 walls for my grad show, and this is what I chose to show. And this painting on the right was my last painting of grad school. That's a detail of it, and that's the one. So this is a pretty significant painting for me, quite large, and 10 feet. And I work in multiple panels, which makes my life a lot easier because I can handle these things myself. And they're hollow, so they're not too heavy, and they meet up perfectly. And they have these prefab forms that you can buy at the Home Depot, which is a popular hardware store that's all over the U.S. So when I move to New York, I'm sure you'll find the same thing there. Another atmosphere painting. This one has the magnetosphere on the bottom right here. Other than that, it's just sort of strange weather fields. And then I found out about the Maldives, and I made this painting. So I found out about the Maldives with an art writer friend of mine. We were applying for a grant to do an art project in a non-Western country that was being affected by global warming. So I was particularly interested in water and sea level rise. And so I was looking at island nations, and when I happened upon the Maldives, I learned about what President Nasheed did with the underwater cabinet meeting, and I just started reading up and looking at pictures of your islands, and I just became so intrigued, and then I became obsessed. And then I got this idea to do this rooftop project. So I had the idea over a year ago. But since, it's just been all these really slow planning stages to actually get to the point where I was able to come out here to start anything that's really solid. So here's a study. Someone had given me a stack of these old mats that are used for matting like certificates or some kind of award or something. They're from the 60s and they're kind of really ugly. They're just tan colored with little blue and red lines. But for some reason I was attracted to it, and it became this format that I had a whole stack of them, and it's like I can just play with this. And so I started making a lot of little studies, little collages. And actually, this one, I'm using Celestial now with some of the paint from the molding paint process, and then some of the pools of paint, and then some screen printing, and then some other screens. And this is the Maldives. And then the BP oil spill happened, and I couldn't turn the news on without hearing about that. And so this painting was a different painting, and then turned into BP oil spill. And some of the colors of the logo BP, I had painted in the logo at the bottom, and then I was using wax, and so at some point I just kind of melted them away, and they sort of morphed into this seascape. And then this is a later version of the painting. Bad photo, the colors are really bad. But the painting is so thick right now. There's, that the yellow lines you see are me actually carving out the encaustic. So the word encaustic means mixing pigment with wax. So it's an oil painting process, but using a wax, like a refined beeswax. Another little collage. I started painting on water, and actually this is a collage of water, and there's a little factoid in the box there that says something about how many flushes per day, how many gallons of water it takes to flush the toilet. I can't remember what it is, but so I started making all these little collages that were kind of dealing with different environmental issues that I was thinking about. And then the red lines going across here are seismograph, the actual seismograph from an earthquake. I was able to get a giant, pretty thick stack of seismographs from earthquakes in California. So I've been using them a lot in my artwork since. And then I discovered this technique called suminagashi. It's an ancient Japanese marbling technique where you use sumi ink on water with the brush, and then also a dispersant, so water mixed with some type of detergent to separate the ink. So the outside, all that atmospheric paint, that's also marbling on paper. I'm using oil paint in the water, mixing oil with also acrylic inks. And this is a little architectural collages. These are weather symbols. I did this big series of spin paintings, using paint over different images of nature and spinning and splashing the paint all over them. And this is a photocopy of one of the spin paintings layered with the suminagashi frame thing. More suminagashi, and I would paint, going back to the gray tones, I guess, paint tones of gray. Collage. This is on the bottom. There's oil samples from, or ground samples from an oil company. Just lots of stuff. This is misplaced, but these are more of the space penning using sound. So getting some interesting patterns there. Island forms. This one's actually on canvas. Very few actually on canvas. So this is using both the space penning with sound and then also then letting that dry and then doing another layer with Suminagashi. Suminagashi means floating in hot water. Sumi for the ink and gashi means floating. And then I started using architectural vellum and doing a layered effect where I always think of these things like they're the islands, but other people that look at my work, I don't even think they think the islands necessarily. They definitely, I get a lot of response that it looks like it's topographical, mapping, these kinds of things, or like the tree growth, or maybe mollusks, shells. But to me, it's like it's all the island. So using the vellum, layering over it, it's like they became submerged. But it's okay if people think different things than what it actually is, because I'm an abstract painter, so it doesn't necessarily have to be one thing or another. Art that heals and protects its subjects is geography of scars, and that was a quote by the poet Wendell Berry, who writes a lot of poetry about nature and environment. Flipping through, I made tons of these things. Here's the Maldives. This is actually, so the paper is like a marbling process. I'm painting on water. And then I dried it and ironed it. And then I did a large photocopy of the Maldives. So the line is actually a photocopy, not a drawing. So it's real graphic looking. And then I decided to have this show at this art center called the Red Poppy in San Francisco, and I was able to show a lot of my Maldives-inspired work here. And the show just opened right before I came out here. And so there's information posted about the project that I'm doing out here in San Francisco right now. And it's also advantageous that the director of the arts program just won some special residency at a big museum in San Francisco called the DM. So now my show about the Maldives is being advertised in the museum. There's a San Franciscan filmmaker, producer group that just did a documentary on President Nasheed called The Island President. Well, the producer came into this show and saw this work about the Maldives, and it was really exciting. And so there's an interesting connection there. So this is the curator on the right of the Red Poppy, and the gal on the left is Tina Dillman, who's also a curator, and she runs a bunch of galleries that get together and do these art nights in Oakland. Anyhow, they're my good friends, and I just decided to throw them in there. This is my opening. So on this wall, what you see, the strips of paper are the seismographs, and a bunch of different types of collages and some of the smaller stripe paintings, some collages that were about the earthquake, tsunami in Japan. It was actually the same time I started doing Sumidagashi was when the crisis happened in Japan. It was actually a coincidence that, for me, and I'm always dealing with these, I mean, for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been dealing with natural disaster in my artwork, so it was sort of a strange coincidence. And actually, that big tornado painting, the one with the 4 panels, when I made that painting, I found out that the town I lived in, the little town I lived in Kansas, had a tornado come through right when I started making that painting. And it wiped out 80% of the houses in the town, and including the schools that I taught at, where the kids had to go to school in little trailers. So it's weird. It's like I get a little superstitious about this stuff, and I thought, well, maybe I caused the tornado to happen or something. Of course I didn't, but it's just always weird when there's synchronicities like that. So that's the poster that's advertising the show. This colored poster is all over the city, and the description of the show is all about the Maldives. So I just thought I'd throw that in there so you guys can see that we're on the map in San Francisco. And here's, I can't remember this artist's name, but I was introduced to him, and the curator told me he was very important to know. But I put it in here because it was kind of a nice shot of the artwork. And then here's a slightly earlier version of the painting called Thermal Expansion. And the project is called Thermal Expansion, Rooftop Ocean. And then a later version of the painting with a painter friend of mine. I often like to stand in front of the paintings and act like I'm a weather forecaster or something. And I actually have a video in the works of me being a meteorologist and using my paintings to tell the weather. Some details. I think that's it. Which one are you talking about? Like any of these or the last big painting?
That would be different, but yeah, those ones.
Like these?
Yeah, that one. The submerged breathing is pretty much evident in that. It looks like when you're snorkeling also the ripples under the ocean bed or something. So, gives some kind of that kind of feeling.
It gets submerged.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any other questions about anything, or like curiosities about the techniques or materials, or?
My question is, it seems your mind is not fixed in certain paints. No, it's always changing with the wall, what you hear, and with the natural disasters. No. The question is it very difficult to? I mean, for architects, we have to always like think out of the box, no, to innovate some new things, new ideas, and sometimes it is really difficult because when we think about the design, what we get is something we have seen already in our life, no. So it's fixed, but in your paintings, it's always changing, no. Is it very difficult, or
Well,
how will you do that?
it's, I would say, yes, it's difficult because I definitely always want to be inventing. The Suminagashi process is something that's ancient and over 2,000 years old. So what I'm doing with that is not so new. I'm taking a slightly new approach to it with the types of materials I'm using and how I'm doing it, and maybe more the context conceptually of why I'm doing it. And then painting, you know, I mean, what can you do new in painting? I don't know, you know, but hopefully I'm doing something new. But you know, I look at a lot of art, and you know, I travel around so that I can see art in all different places. Before I came here, I was in Berlin, and I saw a lot of art there. And you know, in the United States, I see a lot of art. So I often, you know, it occasionally happens that I run into something where it's like, hey, I thought that was my invention, you know? It's just, it's such a big world, but it's a small world at the same time. And the art world in particular feels small to me when I'm traveling and we'll just run into an artist that I know, or like walk into a gallery and it's like my friend's work on the wall in, you know, a foreign city. So, but yeah, I would say it's a challenge to be original, if that's the real question. But I think it's a challenge that's worthwhile, you know. It's like, I mean, not everyone's an artist. There's some people that say this, oh, we're all artists, we're just not all making art. It's not true, don't believe it. Not everyone's an artist. So, and I imagine everyone in this room is creative to some extent, but don't waste it, you know. Use that creativity. It's a gift.